and welcome to the program. I am Adeshawa Odushoga. More than 800 Nigerians have died from xenophobic attacks by South Africans from 2016 till date. Under the guise of being xenophobic, South Africans have constantly launched attacks against foreigners, especially Nigerians, burning down their businesses, setting foreigners ablaze, and even stabbing them to death. One of the many murder cases is the death of Deputy Director General of Chartered Insurance Institute of Nigeria, Obiano Joindobusi Chukwu, who was strangled in a hotel room in South Africa. These unending attacks and disturbing videos surfacing the internet triggered Nigerian youth into reprisal attacks on South African-owned businesses in Nigeria. One of the affected businesses is the Nigerian leading telecommunication company, MTN Nigeria. Its offices in some parts of the country like Lagos, Ibadan, and Uyo were burnt down along its mast. This act prompted the company to shut down its offices nationwide, leaving hundreds of Nigerians out of job. Videos surfacing the social media shows Nigerians losing ShopRite malls across the country, which is believed to also be a South African business. Many of these supposed South African-owned businesses in Nigeria are also owned by Nigerians. However, attack on them may also be affecting the economy of the nation. These attacks are also placing a threat on the idea of the African Free Trade Agreement. Take a listen to how economic experts have been reacting to this.
The response by Nigerians to developments in South Africa, first at the diplomatic level, the response has been very mature, very measured, and I think it's going to have some good outcomes. Because first, the President Buhari, sent an envoy, special envoy to South Africa to get the full information as to what exactly is happening on ground. Then our ambassador has been recalled, again to come and brief the president on the situation of things in South Africa. Because in all of these things, it's good to have the facts before we act. But I believe that diplomatic approach to solving the problem, to applying pressure, is much better. And I must also commend what the federal government has done in condemning the attacks on Nigerian investments here in Nigeria. Because what has happened is that in the name of reprisal attacks, some criminal elements have seized the opportunity to be breaking into the stores of some of these supermarkets and all of that, looting the stores, stealing things, damaging properties, and so on and so forth. That is not our style as a country. That's not the value we represent as a country. And I'm happy that the president has taken steps in conjunction with the security agencies to put a stop to that. So I believe that most of these investments in Nigeria, Nigerians even have even much higher stake in them, in the telecoms, in the supermarket chains, and all of that. You have very high stakes in terms of Nigerian investments in those businesses. You have very high stakes in terms of the employment that it generates for Nigerians. You have very high stake in terms of the revenue, that's in terms of tax that these companies are paying. You have very high stakes in terms of even the services that these companies provide for Nigerians. So if we bring down these businesses and we destroy them, Nigerians even will bear more consequences. It will cost us more, than even the South Africans. So it doesn't make sense for anybody at all to encourage the kind of violent attacks on South African or perceived South African investments in Nigeria. So the approach of the government and the security agencies is very okay, in my view. We should apply a lot more diplomatic pressure. Unfortunately, it is also evident that the South African authorities have not been taking the right kind of steps to also put a stop to the recurrent attacks on Nigerian business, even on African businesses. Because this is not just a Nigerian problem, it's an African problem. Because other African countries are also complaining about the way and manner their properties were being vandalized, the way they were being attacked and all of that. So we need to see more serious commitment on the part of the South African authorities, the government and their security agencies, to put a stop to this so that they don't give the impression that these activities has the endorsement of their government. What is happening now on the continent, particularly with the xenophobic attacks, the closure of the borders and so on in Nigeria, those things actually cast a lot of doubt on our readiness to commit to some pan-African ideals, to commit to the continental free trade area that we are talking about. It casts quite a lot of doubts because apparently the political commitment to see Africans as one, the commitment or the perception of the citizens themselves to see the whole continent as one so that we can pursue the objective of the continental free trade area as one unified body, and that commitment doesn't seem to have manifested sufficiently. So quite frankly, I'm beginning to have some doubts as to whether the AFCTA, the way things are, if things continue this way, I'm beginning to have doubts as to whether we can go through it, go the whole hog successfully, in terms of implementing the African Continental Free Trade Area.
Clearly, you're going to see the impact as it relates to productivity, as it relates to economic income generation. I did mention the fact that the telecommunication sector is the fourth largest sector in the economy and the fastest growing sector of the economy as at second quarter of 2019. Some of the institutions being attacked are MTN facilities. So should anything happen that will bring down their network, you can imagine, being that they're the dominant market player, the impact that we have on the telco sector. And ancillary industries like the entertainment industry that actually derive a lot from the telecommunication sector. So that's on that. In any case, the implications are we are witnessing destruction of productive assets. And that will affect employment because people work in those institutions. I understand some of the institutions have asked their staff to stay at home. People with the institutions may, should the crisis persist, lose their jobs. So that will lead to another case of increase in the level of unemployment. But in any case, I don't expect that this crisis, these xenophobic reprisal attacks will be sustained. I believe it's a reaction, an emotional reaction to the unfair treatment and abuses that Nigerians have suffered in South Africa. I want to believe it's going to be a passing phase. I hope that the government will make necessary pronouncements and take necessary diplomatic actions that will reassure Nigerians that the government will fight their battle.
Corruption not in my country.
How work?
Oh, correct, Oga.
What is it that you are doing?
Oga, they come out the part now. Make we go sell for.
Oga, na correct kuzabi this so. Oga Titus and him boys them. They do am. They will come out the original parts, sell them, make plenty kusa. No wonder our customers bring the generator back to our workshop because they bad. And not because of stuff. Now because they overuse the generator. Plus say NEPA no they give them electricity. Before I open my eye, Makachuku look at my talk in the heaven. Replace this original generator parts back inside this generator of my customer. In short, before una do am, frog jump. One, frog jump. 1, 2, 1. Stealing of generator parts or changing of original parts to a fake one. That is the corruption. Not in my country.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
Similarly, another expert says the reprisal attacks may affect countries' gross domestic product if actions are not taken. Now take a listen to this next report.
A tax on South African-owned businesses is one way Nigerians are reacting to the xenophobic crisis rocking southern Africa. This tit-for-tat trend has grounded the activities of top brands like MTN and ShopRite. While some Nigerians seem to be satisfied with this development, economic experts have raised alarm on the possible impacts.
I noticed that the model used by some of these big stores, particularly that's been attacked in Nigeria today, they have franchise. The real commodity are owned by Nigerians. The land is owned by a Nigerian. The building is owned by a Nigerian. So what Nigerians are doing is not attacking South Africa. Yes, you're attacking a brand which has a value here. It can be affected on the stock market. But who pays for it on the immediate is that Nigerian who is employed, who is on, say, $2 a day salary or $5 a day salary, who is going to be out of work based on the secular issue for fear of attack by another Nigerian who wants to protect Nigerian, not knowing that it's really affecting Nigerians.
Alhaji also highlights the long-term effects of the crisis on the Nigerian economy.
There will be reduction of economic activity as it affects grocery, as it affects telecommunication, and so on and so forth. By the time third quarter report is coming, those sectors will be affected. So if we don't have growth in other areas to swallow the reduction, the GDP figure that we claim is down by to 1.94% may further go down.
Since the start of the week, no fewer than 5 foreigners have been killed in South Africa, where locals blame migrants for the growing rate of unemployment and overpopulation. Alhaji says South Africa needs a proper empowerment scheme to engage unemployed youth while using the population to grow its economy.
South African government, and when I say government now, beyond modern government, beyond democratic government, I mean traditional ruler in South Africa, they are the forefront of this. They know how to speak to these people. Most of these people are not educated, and those that are educated among them, they are not fully educated. Those South Africans that are educated, they have job, they're qualified to get job. So authorities in South Africa may want to design a scheme for the people, because the people you have not taken care of, they will come to destroy what you have taken care of. Even what your friends, your neighboring country are taking care of, they will destroy them. What South Africa should see is opportunity for their people, opportunity to further develop. If foreigners are coming to their country to do business, how maybe do we increase revenue? Do we generate revenue?
Renewed xenophobic attacks on Nigerians in South Africa has strained bilateral relations with both countries. In the space of 24 hours, Nigeria has recalled her ambassador to South Africa, pulled out of the World Economic Summit in Cape Town, and initiated processes to repatriate citizens from the country.
It's about the files your secretary presented to me regarding the company's salary. Yes, the figures don't seem to add up. I suspect there's some form of a
discrepancy.
Precisely, sir.
Keep the figure that way.
That's not doing, sir.
That's my money.
I'm sorry, sir. I can't do that, sir.
See how padded your books are. Are you telling me you cannot pad up figures?
Sir, padding is against best auditing practices, and it's a form of corruption.
It's true. Accountant.
You were testing. Thank you, sir.
That's it. Bagoli.
Yes, sir.
You are fired.
Yeah. Fine, sir. Rather than watch corruption grow under my watch. Padding is a form of corruption and not in my country, sir.
Corruption not in my country.
Stop corruption now.
Moving away from xenophobic attacks, mixed reactions have continued to trail President Muhammadu Buhari's directive to shut Nigeria's border with Benin Republic. According to the president, the closure will address smuggling activities and proliferation of small arms. Buhari explained that the partial closure of Nigeria's borders with Benin Republic was due to the massive smuggling activities, especially of rice, taking place on that corridor. The defense seems not to be sufficient for analysts who says Nigeria needs food security and not food self-sufficiency. Listen to how experts have been reacting in this next report. Since assuming office in 2015, the President Muhammadu Buhari-led administration has been working to attain self-sufficiency in agricultural production. To this effect, the President has taken several measures to control the smuggling of food items as well as curb excessive importation into the country. Partial closure of the Nigerian borders with Benin Republic is the latest of such measures.
Now the border has been shut. A lot of innocent people are suffering the consequence of that. Even some large multinational companies are having challenges exporting their products to some of these West African countries. Some of them that have intermediate products that normally comes in from the West African sub-region are not able to bring in their intermediate products for production. Then we have many small traders, SMEs, who trade in taking goods from Nigeria to neighboring countries and from neighboring countries to many of these things legitimate. All those people now are victims of this border closure. So I believe that what needs to be done is to strengthen the institutional capacity of both the customs and the Nigerian Immigration Service to effectively police the borders. And we should also ensure that we improve on our criminal justice system.
We have had massive, excessive importation of food items and manufactured products that have undermined the local economy, manufacturing, and even farming. So I think that we need to clearly disaggregate the issues so that we do not undermine our own security. But what we have said is that in spite of the security challenges, we would like that government takes a critical look as to how to maintain the delicate balance of allowing economic activities to flourish whilst creatively checking insecurity. For instance, we have some of our members who have had their goods stuck at the border since the 21st of last month. So it's actually a very trying time, especially because those our members are taking advantage of the ETLS and the economies of scale they enjoy in spreading their production process across the West African sub-region.
The President had also recently ordered the Central Bank of Nigeria to ban the sale of forex to importers of food into the country. But many says this directive undermines the independence of the CBN.
I do believe that the CBN, and I think it has played out, that the CBN didn't just take it as a directive. There has to be some back-end activities that could lead to the implementation of such a directive, if you would. So I think that the President merely expressed his view. Yes, he did mention that he has asked the CBN not to give, but as you can see, the CBN will have to carry out some due diligence. It will have to do some impact assessment in its own way as to how to be guided to implement that directive if ultimately it has to. So I don't think it is a presidential decree that he issued.
The pronouncement by the President actually has not made any much of a difference, because practically almost 60% of the items on that list are actually food items or agro-related items. Rice, of course, is inclusive. So I think what the President was just saying was just trying to further underscore or emphasize the policy position of both the government and the Central Bank of Nigeria towards protecting the foreign exchange reserve and also ensuring that we promote self-reliance.
According to reports, Nigeria is the largest producer of rice in West Africa, but ironically the highest importer globally. The country consumes almost 7 million tons of the staple food yearly, but produces only 3.7 million tons. This, however, casts a doubt on the country's self-sufficiency of rice production.
For any restriction policy to work, whether it's import restriction directly or foreign exchange restriction, there has to be commensurate or corresponding investment in the capacity to produce, so that we reduce the gap between the supply and demand. If the gap is reduced, then the price will be a bit moderated, and the pressure to smuggle and all of that, those pressures will reduce. But for as long as you have that kind of shortage, there is a gap. Invariably, this gap is being filled. Ordinarily, it should have been filled by imports that are allowed under a tariff regime so that government can get more revenue. But in the wisdom of government, the decision is that this thing should not come in at all. So if it's not coming in, unfortunately, we have very porous borders. Unfortunately, we have, some government operatives at the border who also compromise. And you have a situation where these things come in.
We need to be able to gauge properly whether we are succeeding or not. Because if you assume that all the rice that is being sold in Nigeria is local rice, you'll be grossly mistaken. Because we still see foreign rice in the market. So for us to be able to ascertain to what extent we have been able to achieve full sufficiency, we need to have our figures right. Government has a role to play in ensuring that from improved seedlings to grading and all the value chain of food production, they are incentivized to be able to optimize production. That is the only way you can successfully reduce importation.
To further boost local production of food items, especially rice in Nigeria, the Central Bank of Nigeria set up a $130 million initiative offering farmers who have at least 1 hectare of land loans at a 9% interest rate, which is below the benchmark interest rate of 14%. Thank you for being a part of this edition on Money Matters. To watch us again, it's simple. Visit our YouTube channel at TV360 Nigeria. I am Adeshawa Odushoga. See you next time.